Hey everyone, it's your boy Richard Graves of the Richard Graves Group. I'm here to talk to you this evening about the resignation of Claudine Gay, former president of Harvard University, amidst accusations of anti-Semitism being allowed on their campuses, as well as plagiarism. Now, there have been a lot of people talking about this today. I saw Ibram Kendi try to chalk it up to her being, having to resign because of racism. And yeah, I guess in a way he's right, because racism in question is anti-Semitism. Dr. Gay was called before a committee in Congress to explain why they were allowing for the harassment of Jewish students, significant anti-Semitic language, physical threats, students hiding in libraries, afraid of protesters, not just pro-Hamas or, in this case, given benefit of the doubt, pro-Palestinian protesters, but also from the radical left was a rainbow of supporters of Palestine all of a sudden, from Black Lives Matters to other organizations. Without further delay, let me give you a little bit of what exactly Ms. Gay said. So this is her during the hearing.
And Dr. Gay, at Harvard, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be, depending on the context.
What's the context?
Targeted as an individual, at an individual.
It's targeted at Jewish students, Jewish individuals. Do you understand your testimony is dehumanizing them? Do you understand that dehumanization is part of anti-Semitism? I will ask you one more time. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric.
And is it anti-Semitic rhetoric?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric when it crosses into conduct that amounts to bullying, harassment, intimidation, that is actionable conduct, and we do take action.
So the answer is yes, that calling for the genocide of Jews violates Harvard Code of Conduct, correct?
Again, it depends on the context.
It does not.
Okay. Yes. Okay, I'm going to ask. Now, I'm African American, so I'm going to ask any Blacks or Latinos or anybody else. If there was a group of people, you're a Black person on the campus of Harvard, and the neo-Nazis came up calling for death to all Black people, do you guys really think that it'd be tolerated? I mean, this is a time when you can't even get right-wing speakers like a Jordan Peterson or Ben Shapiro, allowed to speak on a campus because it makes some students feel uncomfortable, right? Without them threatening to kill anybody, it makes them feel uncomfortable. And this is a university that's a hotline to call if you suffer a microaggression, so you can report it. So I find it fascinating that this same university could not, or should I say would not, just straight out call anti-Semitism wrong. I mean, or that it wasn't allowed, and this just shows the hypocrisy of the radical left, the woke radical left that's all about supposedly diversity, equity, inclusion. However, when it came down to Jewish people, well, there was no diversity, equity, inclusion there. She kept qualifying. She couldn't say no. She couldn't just simply say, you know what, it isn't allowed. She couldn't say that. And if there's a reason why, I don't know. I don't know what the politic is. Well, I actually have some ideas. I'm going to share that with you. But first of all, I want to share this. In response to Miss Dr. Gay resigning, all I have to say is this.
Well, bye.
I think that sums it up. All right. And I'm going to be honest with you. Here's the deal. I'm not going to go into the politics of Israel right now, but in the context of this particular situation, there was an attack in Israel by Hamas on October 7th that killed over 1,200 people and kidnapped about 200 or 300 people, some being still being held hostage. And of course, Israel responds. Now, no matter how you feel about the response, of course, I don't think any rational person wants to see innocent life lost. But once you can't go up punch somebody in the nose, take their kid, rape their wife, run off with their kid, go into your house and expect that person not to come in there. And you definitely can't expect them to try to come in there and not hurt any of your people, because it's going to happen. And I'm sure Hamas calculated that would happen, because they have a broader campaign backed by Iran and Russia to do what they're doing. But that's a whole different conversation. I'm not going to go into that. It's like this. I will say this. I pray for the peace of Israel. I pray for the peace. I pray for the peace of the Palestinian people. I don't want to see any innocent lives lost. However, we're in a war situation, and when war happens, that happens. You know, hopefully this conflict is over quickly, and hopefully somehow, some way, the Israelis and the Palestinians can come to some type of understanding. Now, that is way beyond me, so I'm not going to talk about how that looks or what that looks like, what is required. This conflict has been going on since the end of World War II, and these problems in that region have been going on since the end of the Ottoman Turkish Empire at the end of World War II or World War I. So, you know, this is a lot of long-standing history about things going on there. I'm hiring my boy Jonathan on, and we're going to sit and talk about that and, you know, talk about the history of the situation. But right now, just talking about this university professor getting fired. Yes, she deserved to get fired. No, it's not because she's Black. And honestly, they wouldn't even have discovered her plagiarism if it hadn't been for the anti-Semitic remarks. Because once you do something like that, people start taking a deep and long dive about you, and that's what they did. That being said, you know, I hope that she gets her mind right, but I'm not quite sure she gets it, and that's why I said, does she get it? All right, this is from her letter of resignation. This was on CNN. She says, these last weeks have helped make clear the work we need to do to build the future, to combat bias and hate in all its forms. Okay, well, it needed to be, you know, dealt with as far as anti-Semitism. I don't see why an educated doctor of political science, I believe, would need all of that to understand that, you know, anti-Semitism is unacceptable. And what they allowed at those campuses would not have been acceptable for any other so-called marginalized or minority group. If, again, I doubt if anybody came on a campus coming after African Americans, LGBTQ people, Latinos, Native Americans, I doubt it would have been tolerated. There's a reason why I believe it's tolerated, but let me finish up with this woman's letter. Now, this is what part that do you actually get? The first part sounds like, okay, she's learning something, right? Wrong. You know, she goes on, frightening to be subjected to personal attacks and threat fueled by racial animus. So she still don't get it, because she don't get it. She believes that this is fueled by racial animus. I guess, yeah, the initial fuel of it was the racial animus against Jewish people that caused her to be put on that stage. No one just randomly said, let's grab a university professor, a university president from Harvard because she's a Black woman and get her fired. That's not what happened. In fact, there were two other women up there, both presidents of universities. I believe the one was University of Pennsylvania, I believe. And she also resigned from her position as well because of the stupidity in how she answered the remarks. That being said, let me explain what we got going on here. And let me explain what the real issue is. The issue is the radical left has created a world within all of their DEI and social justice warring. And don't get me wrong, I have no problem with social justice. I have no problem with diversity, equity, and inclusion. But when you weaponize something and when you take it to the absurd things happen, like you not being able to say clearly that anti-Semitism will not be tolerated. So let me explain what I mean by the absurd. So in the anti-racism world, in the DEI world, in the marketplace of it, because like I said, it's weaponized, people making money off of it. What has happened is people who are simple-minded, and I'm sorry if you fall into that category, anybody I'm talking to, had divided the world up into a very overly simplistic dichotomy of the oppressed and the oppressors. And they've divided the whole world, and that's how they see the whole world. That's how they see their worldview. That's how they inform their politics. Now, this is the radical left. I'm not saying this for regular people on the left, regular liberals, regular progressives. I'm not saying this for people who actually seek racial equality. I'm not saying this for people who seek to make things better for people in America. I'm all for that. Obviously, I'm African American. I am, of course, for racial issues to be addressed properly. But I'm not stupid. And what I mean by that is I'm not stupid enough to say things like the type of stuff that I experience as an African American in today's modern society is the same as even what my father or mother experienced. It damn sure ain't the same as what my grandfather experienced. Now, my dad experienced Jim Crow in Mississippi. My mother experienced racism in Tennessee. All right. And then my dad, when he came to Chicago, experienced more racism in Chicago. All right. So, redlining, people not be able to move in neighborhoods, segregation, and discrimination. These things were true, and in some cases can still be true. However, I believe in our modern society, the problems we face regarding race are nowhere near as dramatic, nowhere near as extensive, and nowhere near as debilitating as they were in the past. We're not living under Jim Crow. We're not living under slavery. And I think it's an insult to our ancestors who did to try to equate our situations right now with that. That's a whole nother video. We'll talk about it later. But back to this false dichotomy, this logical fallacy of creating oppressors and the oppressed. So when you see the world through such a simplistic and silly dichotomy, that's all you can see. So some of these people on the radical left, when they look at Israel, the Israelis played the part of the oppressor, the colonizer, the white person. That's why you always hear all these comparisons to apartheid, to segregation in the South, to them being colonized in Gaza. That's a very serious oversimplification of what's going on. Now, again, I'm not going to go into the politics of it now. If you want, email me, hit me up in the comments. I'll do a specific video about the situation in Israel. However, I'm going to say this. It is an oversimplification to whittle it down to something you feel you can relate to. And here's the problem with the oppressed false dichotomy. People see the whole world of that dichotomy. They miss any nuance. And missing nuance is actually understanding the intricate things that make things what they are. Okay? So in the mind of the radical left, the Israelis are playing the position of the oppressor. They are playing the position of the extension of Western society, of white European culture. This is what would be argued, regardless of the genetic diversity of the Israeli people and their genetic proximity to Palestinians. Again, for a later discussion. So when people see the world in that way, that's how they operate, and they're just going to jump on. That's why Black Lives Matter is right on the side of the Palestinian people, because they say, well, these are oppressed people. We need to get on their side. I get that it's nice to be able to look at the world in such an oversimplistic way and not think about what's really going on, to not think about the fact that 1,200 people were murdered at the least, and people were kidnapped, women were raped, sexually mutilated, babies were killed. Now, I know there's some of you out there, if you're pro-terrorist, because being pro-Palestinian is not making an argument that I hear some of you make. Some of you make the argument, well, you know what, the babies weren't killed by being beheaded. They might have been shot. They might have been thrown up against the wall, but they weren't beheaded. Like such a distinction means anything. And there are some of you who say, well, we don't trust the Israeli government and what they're saying because they had that wrong when everybody jumped on, the babies were beheaded. And you'll say that the women that they're now finding with brutal, gruesome damage to their genital areas or to their breast areas, you know, I'm not going to even go into it. You guys can look that up. You know, well, that's not necessarily proof they were raped. People who make these arguments are morons. I'm sorry if you're one of those people, but you are clearly a moron. And if you're offended by it, just click off the channel, because obviously you are not intellectually astute enough to actually understand the nuanced discussion. For the rest of the population who wants to understand nuance and understand that things matter, details matter, let's continue to talk. So when that happens, you know, there's going to be a response. And I'm quite sure Hamas anticipated a response, because if Israel overplays its hand, it creates a whole new generation of people who are mad at them and who want them gone. So I understand that is a tactic that Hamas uses, you know, but again, like I said, I hope the Israeli people and the Palestinian people come to some sort of a understanding, be it a two-state policy or one-state policy, whatever they come up with, as long as it stops people from dying and people can live peacefully together, go on with their lives as a society, I'm for it. Like I said, it's beyond me to present the answer to that particular question. However, I will do a video. I say if you request now, I will do a video talking about the history and how we got to where we're at and all the different things that have happened since the end of the Ottoman Turkish Empire that bring us to the modern situation in Israel, in Gaza, and the West Bank. So that being said, back to the radical left who sees the world in this oversimplified dichotomy. Everything is that to them. So it is hard for them to be able to simply call wrong if they see the other group as an oppressor. And we've got to get out of that mindset. This is the mindset by which I'm going to touch on that the anti-racism crowd, the Ibram Kendi crowd, will say that Black people can't be racist, and then people try to split hairs about, definitions of discrimination and prejudice. Let me be clear. Black people, Latino people, Asian people, Arab people, white people, any group of people can be racist. In the basic sense of the term, a racist or have racism is to believe in the superiority or inferiority of yourself or of other people predicated on the phenotype we got going on, our skin color, nose, shape, and hair. All right. That is what racism is. Now, when we're talking about power and structure, that means we start bringing in adjectives like systemic and institutional, structural. Now, yes, most African Americans do not control institutions or systems or structures to be that type of racist. You can argue that. But again, because the radical left likes to whittle things down in these false dichotomies, in their world, Black people can't be racist. So, like I said, we could talk about that. I wrote an article, go to Richard Gray's group blog. I wrote an article on there about can Black people be racist? And I explained why the answer is yes. That being said, I would like to say I feel sorry for the professor, but I really don't, because she brought this one on herself. When you got to qualify your answers with that much, when it comes to something as horrendous as Jewish students having to run into libraries to hide from people chase them down, you're allowing all kinds of hate speech. But again, like I said, if that was targeted at any other group, Black people, Latinos, Native Americans, LGBTQ people, it wouldn't be tolerated. And it shouldn't be tolerated with those groups. All right. I want you all, whatever group you're in, I want you to think about your group. If you're a Black person, I want you to think about being on the campus where you're a minority, which is most of the campuses, unless we're at the HBCU. All right. And you've got a group of people, be it, Nazis, Aryan Nation, Ku Klux Klan, coming up, protesting your very existence, telling you that they want death to you, running up in your face, chasing you in groups, and you got to run off and hide. And you know what? Unfortunately, I'm going to say this. This did happen to our people about 50 years ago, right? It was happening, like in some cases in the 80s, it was happening, So, we've gotten past that. But so we should understand that we don't want to see any people go through that. We're not many years away from Edgar Evers, all right, and what he endured, or what, the people endured going to these college campuses, first African-Americans going, which brings me to another point I'm going to touch on. I'm going to get off of here real quick. This whole self-segregation, Black safe spaces, we got to have our own dorms of only Black people so we can feel safe. I'm going to tell you people are silly to fall for that. All right. That's called self-segregation. Let me tell you something. The best way to get somebody to do something that you want them to do is to make them think it was their own idea. All right. Dr. King fought for us to be able to be in any dorm room we want to. All right. But you're going to self-segregate because you're buying into this mythological bull crap that you need to be in. I need my safe space. Look, let me tell you something. If you're going to be successful in this world, you're going to deal with people of all kinds of different ethnicities. So get used to it. All right, at your university, get used to how to live and be around other people who don't look like you. They need to get used to it, which was the point of why it happened in the first place. So Black people started staying in the regular dormitories because those white people back in the day need to get used to being around Black people. And if we've gone this far and now we're going backwards, we're self-segregating. But like I said, this is that illogic of the radical left. That being said, I'm going to leave it alone. I'm at 20 minutes. I said I'll keep these short. We'll talk more. Hit me up in the comments. Send me an email, richardgrays@live.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you would like me to talk about. Like I said, I see some folks have sent me a couple messages saying they want me to give a history of Israel. That's going to be one I'm going to be very careful about, because I want to be very clear and be very factual about what I say. So I'm going to go back to the end of World War I and the end of the Ottoman Turkish Empire, which is where the story begins, believe it or not. You guys can start looking that up. And I'm going to give a little quick 10 to 15 minute history of how we got to where we are. So at least if you take a side, you're at least informed. That being said, God bless. Talk to you soon. Peace.